Spring had come to Appalachia, and I had wondered if it would ever make it. The forest and the hills had come alive, and the animals were poking their heads up and beginning to cycle again so they could prepare for next winter. Grandpa had come alive too. His cough sounded a lot better now, but I still heard him coughing up more than spit. He was whittling again, making things for the flea market when they opened up next week, and there was a deer in his hand now as he sat on the porch and watched the rain. It had been a season for rain, it seemed, and this one had come up very suddenly. Glimmer and I had been sitting out here with him, drinking beer and listening to the night sounds, and when the trees bent and the wind chimes tinkled in the sudden gale, Grandpa had stopped his carving and flared his nostrils as he took in the wind. "It's gonna storm." I looked at him, watching Glimmer fill her nostrils as well. "You think?" "Oh, definitely," Grandpa said. "It's gonna be a real ripper of a storm, too."
Smells like a little rain. Maybe an hour of rain before it is done.
Grandpa shook his head.
"I don't think so, Glimmer. This smells like a real rager."
In the end, Grandpa had been right. The storm had come up suddenly, the wind rattling the tin on the roof as it hit the house. The rain came in close behind it, making us back up under the overhang a little as it hit the porch. Grandpa never stopped carving, and I could see his knife scraping away as the lightning flashed. "Man," I said, "you weren't kidding, Grandpa. That came up in a hurry."
I hope it ends as quickly. I would hate to have to run home through the rain tonight.
"I think it will, before too long. But it's got a lot of blow left in it. I saw a storm come up like this once before, though it was far bigger than this."
"Oh?" I asked. "Some kind of ghost storm?"
"Well, the storm was normal enough, but there was a ghost. He's probably why I made it out in time and got to keep my truck."
"Sounds like quite a story."
"It was. But at the time, it was also pretty scary. I was a little further from home that day, but it was well worth the drive. I was making a delivery to a pretty affluent area of North Carolina. It was an area I had never been to, a place I kind of fell in love with when I saw it. Pawleyes Island was something out of a dream. I didn't even know North Carolina had beaches that beautiful, but one look at the place told me that it was out of my pay scale. The town was like something out of a Maine painting, old-looking wooden buildings and lots of character, little bistros and eateries and charming main streets full of boutiques and stores. I checked my directions and found the right road, heading up onto the coast as I made my way to Mr. Gander's house. It turned out to be a 3-story mansion on a cliffside, and I imagine the view at sunset was breathtaking. Mr. Gander, far from being the stuffy carpetbagger I had expected, was a down-to-earth fellow from out west with his 4 strapping, helpful sons, and a wife that insisted on feeding me glass after glass of sweet tea until I thought I might bust. I was glad for the boys' help, too, because the Ganders had expensive and heavy-tasting furniture. Wardrobes and bookcases and sedan chairs, love seats, and a mahogany desk that took all of us to lift up the stairs and into his study. At the end, it was about 4 o'clock, and I was sweaty and sore from a day of unloading. Mr. Gander thanked me for all my hard work, and when he shook my hand, I felt something between our palms. It was 3 $10 bills, the biggest tip I had made at that time. "You more than earned it, young man," he said, winking as he headed back inside. I was rolling up the ramp, my heart soaring at the money in my pocket, when I heard someone speak from the side of the truck. "Storm's coming." I looked, thinking it was one of the boys, but the man was a little farther away than I thought he was. He was standing on the edge of the cliff, looking over the ocean with his hands in his pockets. He was dressed in a long coat the color of dust, and the scarf he wore seemed unseasonable. He had a tall topper, something that looked out of a Dickens novel, and his riding boots looked muddy. He had his back to me, his eyes on the view, and when I came up beside him, I saw that he was younger than I would have thought. He was a handsome youth with a thin mustache and features I would call foxish. He never looked at me as I came to see who he was. "Pardon?" I asked. "Storm's coming. Might want to head for home." I looked at the view and chuckled, not seeing a cloud in the sky. "You don't say?" "I do," he said, finally turning to look at me. "Think it might be best if you head home." "Is that a fact?" I said, thinking I could see what was happening here. "And if I don't?" The man looked back at the ocean. "Then you might end up here longer than you intended to be." I meant to ask him what he meant by that, thinking that I was being cryptically told to get lost and that I wasn't rich enough to linger here, when one of Ganda's sons called out to me, telling me I'd forgotten my gloves. I looked away for a second, maybe two, but when I turned back, the man was gone. I asked the boy, his middle son, if he'd seen the man, but he said he hadn't. "I saw you taking in the view and wanted to catch you before you left, sir. Thank you for delivering our furniture." I told him it was no trouble and climbed back into my truck. I was a little freaked out, but the more I thought about it, the more it galled me. Who was he to tell me to get lost? He wasn't the mayor or anything. I had intended to drive home, but I thought I might catch a bite to eat before I did. I wasn't just going to leave because some stranger said so, and I pulled into the diner at the foot of the hill and parked beside it so I could get some supper. I had a long drive ahead of me, and I wanted to be well fed before starting off. I had expected his sentiment to be mirrored by the staff at the diner, but the waitress was kind to me and even suggested the country fried steak. Food was delicious, the portions large and very tasty. I decided on a piece of pie that I had watched under the glass as I ate once I was done. I was halfway through it, the pecans very moist, when I heard a familiar voice from the booth behind me. "Should be rolling in soon, partner. You might want to roll out." I turned, and there he was, the guy in the gray suit. He was sipping from an old and very well-worn teacup. He was dipping a bag into it, the string going up and down, and it took me a moment to realize there was no bag attached to it. He grinned at me, the arms of his suit puffing up dust as he dunked the non-existent bag, and I narrowed my eyes at my impeccably dressed stalker. "What's your problem, pal?" "No problem, Squire. I just wanted you to get out of town before you got hurt." I was about to get up and ask him what he meant, but someone sat down across from him then. A man in flannel and suspenders slid into the booth as he moved to the end of the line and reached for a menu. I could see that the fella was gone again. I looked around. No way he had time to escape without me seeing him, but as I looked out the glass window, I saw that he had. He was walking across the parking lot with a cane in his hand as he made his way to the beach, and I got up and left some money as I followed after him. I was tired of being stalked by whoever this was, and I was going to give him a piece of my mind. I left my truck there, stomping across the road and sinking a little as my feet bogged down in the sand. It was white, whiter than any sand I had any right to be, and as I started across it, I could see the smug bastard standing near the surf line. He was looking at the water again, but now I could see that he was actually looking at what was offshore in the distance. He was looking at a storm. It was a real rager, a huge mass of dark clouds that swirled off the coast, and I wondered if this was the storm he was talking about. It looked rainy, windy, and not at all pleasant. He was watching it with interest, and as I came up beside him, I heard him sigh audibly. "It's nearly here," he said, taking his eyes off the black mass. "Maybe you should hit the road before it's too late." "Why do you care so much?" I asked, the wind kicking up suddenly and blowing grit into my face. "I don't know," he said, "but I'd hate to see you get mixed up in something like this. It'd put a damper on your future, and I know you've a bright future ahead of you." "What are you talking about?" I said, having to raise my voice as the wind blew in, harder than it had before, and smelling of rain. "Nothing, I suppose. See you, partner." Then he simply turned toward me, like he meant to walk right over me, and vanished into the air. I stood there, the wind threatening to push me over, and as the thunder rumbled out over the water, I decided it might be a good idea to head home. I took my remaining $25 and kicked rocks. It was a good thing I did. In retrospect, though, I guess I could have warned some people, though I doubted they would have listened. The rain was still coming down, but it had slackened quite a bit as we sat listening to Grandpa's story. "So what happened to the town?" I asked. "Well, it survived. It's still there today, but the storm was pretty bad. I was making my way through some podunk town in South Carolina a week later when I saw a paper talking about the storm. It had been a nasty one. The wind had done a number on the town, and the photos showed a picture of a very familiar house on the side of the cliff. It was gone, ripped down to the porch I had stood on, and the article said the Gander family had yet to be found. I still had one of those $10 bills from the man, and I still do. I put it in my lockbox, and I hadn't had the strength to touch it since. It was odd to have a dead man's money, and I still think about how close I came to joining them in whatever watery grave they found when their house slipped into the ocean. We all sat and contemplated that as the wind and the rain petered themselves out. It was over in another hour, and Glimmer took her leave as she wished both of us a good night.
Let us hope I don't find any gray men on their way home,
she teased, kissing my cheek before heading out into all that wet. "What about the gray fella?" I finally asked, as we went inside, the rain still dripping off the eaves.
"Oh, I found out later that the gray man is a bit of a local legend. He often warns people about storms, and he was mentioned on a news program after warning a couple about Hurricane Hugo. He still gets spotted now and again, and the residents have begun looking for him so they know when it's time to take cover."
"Very generous of him," I said, leaving my shoes by the back door as Grandpa stretched and headed for bed.
"Let's hope he's learned to be a little more direct, though," Grandpa said, wishing me a good night. Otherwise, he might get more than he bargained for from some out-of-towner. I chuckled at that all the way to bed, as the last of the rain helped me into deep and dreamless sleep.
Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.